Hey everyone, it's Alexander Robinson. Welcome to the channel, and this is my review for Pokémon 4EVER, which, as the title so non-subtly suggests, is the fourth movie in the Pokémon franchise. It came out in Japan in 2001 under the subtitle Celebi: A Timeless Encounter, and it was released in the US in 2002 under the subtitle Celebi: The Voice of the Forest. This movie takes place during the fourth season of the anime, Johto League Champions, and once again follows Ashe, Misty, and Brock as they go along their Pokemon journey across the Johto region. They end up in a forest where they meet a young boy named Sam, who is actually from a different time period. 40 years in the past, more specifically. In the movie's pre-title sequence, we see that Sam is trying to rescue a Celebi from a Pokemon hunter. He manages to get away, but Celebi ends up sending both of them 40 years into the future, where we think all is well until it turns out that another Pokemon hunter is after Celebi for his own personal gain. So the movie is essentially Ashe and company trying to get Sam back to his own time period and keep this hunter from capturing Celebi. And also Suicune is in the movie. For some reason. Now, when I reviewed Pokémon 3 last week, I mentioned that the first 5 movies were released in US theaters, and this was the only one that I didn't see when it came out in theaters. And apparently most people didn't either. Unlike the first 3 movies that were distributed by Warner Brothers, Miramax ended up distributing this one, and they didn't even give it a full theatrical release. It came out in limited, and it came out over a year after its Japanese release. So I just assumed that, well, I missed out on this movie, but probably a lot of other Pokemon fans did. But then again, I also live in Los Angeles, so a limited release in Los Angeles might as well be a wide release. Anyway, I ended up watching it on DVD about a month or 2 after I saw Pokemon Heroes in theaters. And when I first saw this movie, I was just kind of meh on it. It had some things to like about it, but at the end of the day, I just felt like something was off. Compared to the first 3 movies, this one was just lacking in several areas, and I really couldn't put my finger on what exactly it was lacking in. Having watched this movie as an adult for these reviews, I now finally get it, because this movie feels just flat out lazy, uninspired, and in some ways, straight up insulting. There are some small things to criticize, like the fact that this movie actually opens up with a narration from Brock on what the world of Pokemon is. So, you wait 4 movies to actually give us this introduction when the first 3 just straight up went, "Oh, do you not know anything about Pokemon? Are you a newcomer to the series? Well, that is not our problem, so screw you." But whatever, that's a small oddity that doesn't really affect the bulk of the movie, because the rest of the movie has problems ranging from the way the movie is structured and the script, which is all terrible and lazy. When I first saw this movie, I thought that the entire opening sequence where Sam rescues Celebi took place in the present day, and then when we cut 40 years into the future and meet the film's villain, the Iron Mask Marauder, I thought it took place far in the future. So when the movie continued and Sam pops up right in front of Ashe, Misty, and Brock, and the Iron Mask Marauder pops up out of nowhere, I was straight up confused, because I get the idea to not spoon feed to your audience. Try to have faith in the audience that they're smart. But this is to a point where you don't attempt to explain anything, so everyone is lost. Now, as for the Iron Mask Marauder himself, he is a lazy, uninspired villain. Like, the only thing you would remember about this character is his cool mask, which admittedly is cool, even if he has possibly the worst goatee I've ever seen. It fits anime world, but realistically, I would look at that and want to chop it off instantly. Anyway, they don't give him that much of a backstory, and I'm only going by what we're given in the dub. I've not seen the Japanese version, so I can't comment on a lot of it, except for a handful of scenes, which we'll get to a little later. But in the dub version, they just say that he's part of Team Rocket, and that he's a higher up when compared to Jesse and James. Apparently, this character was actually kicked out of Team Rocket, which makes no sense that you could be so bad in Team Rocket that Giovanni fires you over Jesse and James. Whatever. But his big motive is just, I have this time-traveling Pokemon that's psychic and grass. I'm going to just rule the world. And it's so lazy. He has no motivation at all. He's as lazy as the villain in Pokemon 2000. I mean, Mewtwo and Molly from the first and third movie respectively had some more interesting and more, dare I say, nuance? That's a strong word for a Pokemon movie. More understandable motivations, even though it's pretty debatable on whether you could consider those two characters to be villains. This guy is just the evil, cliched, I want to take over the world villain. And of course, his name is just flat out stupid. The overall movie seems to have a lighter tone than the previous three, and there are a few moments throughout where it tries to be like the Pokemon version of Bambi, where Celebi is sort of viewed as the forest prince, and all the Pokemon that live in this forest come around and try to help Celebi out. It's a neat idea to try to go for this tone, and there are a few charming moments throughout, but the movie doesn't go anywhere beyond that. It's very bare bones, and just doesn't have the magic or wonder that something like Bambi had. Celebi can be cute here and there, but after a while it gets annoying, and considering that a lot of this movie is filler, there's only so much I can take of Celebi being cute. And Suicune is absolutely worthless in this movie. Like, there's no reason for Suicune to be in it at all. I never understood why Suicune was always regarded as the most important of the legendary beasts, and as for this movie, Suicune's only contribution is to take out the Iron Mask Marauder's Tyranitar while Brock's Onix couldn't. And the one thing that they set up about Suicune in this movie is that it has the power to purify tainted water. So at the end of the movie, when the Iron Mask Marauder is defeated and Celebi is nearly dying, Suicune hops across the lake to try to purify the water to bring Celebi back to life, and that fails. So the one thing they established that Suicune can do, Suicune's main purpose in the movie, doesn't even get fulfilled. Which actually could lead to a bold direction, because when Celebi isn't able to be cured or brought back to life because of Suicune's purification, that, if they stuck with that, that could have been a bold ending. Sure, Celebi may have been saved from the Iron Mask Marauder, but the stress was so high and the damage has already been done that there's no way to bring Celebi back to life. Like, if they had killed Celebi right there, that would have been a bold direction, because Lord knows Mewtwo Strikes Back went into some dark places in the Japanese version. But what happens? At the moment when everyone is crying over the death of Celebi, our main characters, all the forest Pokemon, Suicune, up from the heavens, a portal opens up, and all the Celebis from across time show up out of nowhere and revive their friend before traveling back to their own time periods. Remember when I reviewed Shazam! Fury of the Gods and I said that it had the worst cop-out ending I have seen since Pokémon Forever? Yeah, Billy Batson gets killed in that movie, and all his foster siblings and foster parents mourn his loss. They bury him, and then out of nowhere, Wonder Woman pops up, restores the staff, gives Anthena back her powers so she can be a god again, and revives Billy Batson after that heartbreaking sequence. It's similar vibes with both these movies. It's like, where the hell were you during this whole time? It's literally a Deus Ex Machina ending with all those Celebis. Like, I'm surprised that God didn't reach his hand out of that portal and just released all those Celebis from his palm. Or I guess, if you want to stay in the realm of Pokemon, Arceus did just come out of that portal and revive Celebi itself. Yes, I know Arceus was not invented at this time. You have no reason at all to tell me that in the comments. I know, but considering how Pokemon is sort of a retcon nightmare, you can't help but make that reference. So that's a lot of what's terrible about this movie, and I have a few other criticisms, but I want to shift gears into some of the stuff that I actually do like about this movie, even if some of it is very faint praise. I like how they kept Shinji Miyazaki's score throughout most of this movie. It's not super memorable, but at least it sounds fitting for the movie. And the point where I noticed that his score was kept and not replaced is when I heard the Wild Pokemon Battle theme from Red and Blue. Like I mentioned earlier, this movie does attempt to have a Bambi feeling towards it, and I like the moment when our heroes try to rescue Celebi, and they're led by an Ursaring, a Stantler, and a Furret to the lake to revive Celebi. That's a nice scene. I do enjoy the moment where Team Rocket finally gets to deliver their whole motto in a movie without being cut off. That's amusing, even though they have a completely pointless scene where they try to grab a peach and it gets snatched up by a Pidgeotto. Like, that scene has no purpose in this movie at all. And then there's the twist of the movie, where we find out that Sam was actually a younger Professor Oak. It's a neat idea when you consider that the first time Ash goes to get his Pokemon, he oversleeps, he's in his pajamas, and he's there just as the 3 Kanto starters have been taken by other trainers. And yet Professor Oak is still willing to give him a Pikachu. A disobedient one, but he gets a Pokemon nonetheless. So thinking about that first episode and all the other times Ash and Professor Oak have been together, with the knowledge that Sam was a younger version, it sheds a new light on their relationship that is pretty cool. I just wish 4Kids hadn't shoved it down our throat in the most insulting way possible. I did not see the Japanese version, but I am very familiar with the fact that 4Kids actually commissioned a few scenes for the US release to try to drive home that twist even further and make it super obvious to US audiences. In the Japanese version, after Ash and his friends see Suicune off in the distance, they call Professor Oak, and it's mostly the same conversation that we get in the US version, except it doesn't end with that moment where Professor Oak wonders whether or not he should have told Ash something. Instead, we get a brief cameo from Muck and Tracy, and that's it. The sequence at the end of the movie when our heroes call Professor Oak again was not in the Japanese version at all. In the Japanese version, the only clue that we get to this twist is in the credits. When Tracy is going through a lot of Professor Oak's books, he comes across a sketchbook that's not his own, but belongs to Professor Oak, and there's a sketch of Pikachu and Celebi sleeping. So it's implied in the Japanese version that Sam was a younger Professor Oak, and not crammed down our throats the way 4Kids decided to do it. Which, that Team Rocket sequence that I mentioned earlier with the peach, that was also commissioned by 4Kids, because I don't know. You know, considering that this movie was only given a limited release in the United States, it makes you question why 4Kids spent the extra money to get new sequences animated for this version exclusively. They could have just easily dubbed over certain sequences. It was so easy for them to change Mewtwo's motivation and the morals of the first movie with the English dub and not adding new scenes, so why did they feel the need to add new scenes to this version that didn't even get a wide release? It makes no sense at all. I really don't like this movie. This one was a bit of a struggle to get through. The animation is actually very underwhelming. Sometimes it's flat out bad. The script is terrible. The way this movie is structured and paced is flat out lazy. The villain's awful. Misty, Brock, and Suicune are completely useless in this movie and contribute nothing. And the ending is just a straight up middle finger, whether it's the Deus Ex Machina ending with all the Celebes, or 4Kids cramming down that twist of Sam being a younger Professor Oak. So don't waste your money on it. I'm not gonna tell this movie to burn in hell, because while there's several insulting things in it, I never felt angry, and really, I don't expect a whole lot from the main series Pokemon movies. They're just there, they appeal to a specific crowd. I love the Pokemon games, but I don't hold the movies to the same level of quality as I would with the games, so I can't push myself to get angry about this movie, but it's just not good at the end of the day. It's not worth your time at all. And there you go, that's my review for Pokémon Forever. I know there was a short film that was attached to it in its Japanese release, Pikachu's Peekaboo, but honestly, I have nothing to say about this short. I've seen it, I don't like it, but the only amusing thing about it is that there's a psychopathic lawnmower that tries to murder all the Pokemon. That's the most amusing thing about it. Other than that, it's just not worth your time at all. So next week we come to the last movie I'll be reviewing in this series, and the last Pokemon movie to feature the original trio. That would be Pokemon Heroes. This one I have not seen since it came out in theaters in 2003, so I'm really curious, more than the others, how this will hold up for me. But until then, I want to know what you guys think about Pokemon Forever. If you've seen it, what did you think? Whatever the case may be, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell button to get notifications. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, have a good day and take care of yourselves.